Welcome to Kopi Time, podcast series on markets and economies from DBS Group Research. I'm Taimur Beg, Chief Economist, welcoming you to our 161st episode. Today, we'll dive into the world of cloud services, and for which we have an industry leader. Jeff Johnson is MD and General Manager of Amazon Web Services, or what is now known as AWS. He has been with AWS for almost 8 years, prior to which he spent over a decade with Microsoft. Through these jobs, Jeff has led teams on core infrastructure, enterprise, and commercial sales. Jeff Johnson, welcome to Kopi Time.
Thank you, Taimur. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you. I've been looking forward to this conversation because it's such a fascinating field right now, Jeff. So let's actually begin by talking about AWS. Yeah. Give us a sense of the scale and breadth of your operations globally, regionally, and also in Singapore.
Yeah, sure. So, look, it's, I think an incredible time around innovation, and, our story of innovation at AWS just continues in terms of globally now. We have over 120 availability zones across 38 different geographic regions. Across Southeast Asia, we have AWS regions in Singapore, in Indonesia, in Malaysia, and in Thailand. And we just continue to really try and bring our services closest to our customers so they can take advantage of cloud services and AI. I think what really kind of sets us apart is also how we build these regions, Taimur. And one of the things that we do is when we create a region, it's really creating 3 different data centers that are physically separate and isolated. And what this does is provide just great levels of resilience, enabling customers to be able to run mission-critical workloads on our infrastructure to meet complex regulatory or compliance standards as well. I'd say the other area that we really focus on a lot is security. So we like to say that security at AWS and Amazon is job zero. So security is very much built in from the ground up. And so if I take innovations that we've made across our data centers, so for example, we've engineered at the silicon layer something called Nitro, which actually takes some of the virtualization capabilities and puts that on a separate chip. That means that the surface area is reduced from threats and attacks. So we're innovating right down to the silicon layer. And I think what this shows really is that, we continue to provide, breadth and depth of services. And we're super proud that actually Gartner have just recognized us for the 15th consecutive year as being a leader in the cloud infrastructure Magic Quadrant. So our ability to execute is ranked as the highest. And I think this is really about that breadth and depth of service, but also the scale, as you mentioned, that we have globally and particularly in this region here. And then also our partner ecosystem as well, with over 200,000 partners supporting our customers to help them take advantage of these services and innovation as well.
And how central is Singapore to your operations in the region?
Yeah, so Singapore is it's the APJ headquarters of our APJ team and business here. But it's part of a collection of regions that we have. As I mentioned, across Asean, we have 4 regions here in Indonesia, in Malaysia, and Thailand. And each of these regions represents significant investments that we've made in the region. So actually just last year at our summit here in Singapore, we announced a further $12 million of investment into Singapore in terms of our cloud infrastructure build out. In Malaysia, it's about a $6 billion investment that we announced there through to 2038. And in Indonesia and Thailand, a further $5 billion each in those regions. So again, we continue to invest holistically really across the region, and really our focus is on really trying to bring these services as close as we can to our customers. And I think what excites me probably the most is how we're helping our customers transform using these services. So if I think about customers right here in Singapore like Grab, which is used by over 30 million active users on a monthly basis now. And really AWS are powering and the platform underneath all of the services that Grab provide, and that's enabled Grab to also launch new products quickly like digital banks and so on as well. In the banking space, I know we're here in the wonderful DBS studio, but some of the digital banks that have started up, like Trust Bank, for example, in the last 18 months, again, built a digital bank on top of AWS infrastructure. They're able to onboard new customers in less than 3 minutes. So this ability to move fast and be really agile is important. We serve other large customers like Petronas in Malaysia. We're helping them modernize their operations, or Bank Islam in Malaysia as well, where we're helping them bring their digital banks to market quickly. Siam Commercial Bank in Thailand. So both from enterprises right through to startups, there's a lot happening in that space as well, just with startups creating many new generative AI solutions. Great examples like Botnoy in Thailand, who provide translation services used by over 10 million customers now, or users using that service. So incredible innovation. I think what we really try and do is just democratize access to this technology. So if you have an idea and you have an ambition, you can get started on AWS and build, and obviously the pay-as-you-go cloud model just enables businesses to try and experiment quickly, but also scale very quickly within the region or more broadly as well with the global infrastructure footprint that I mentioned.
Sure, absolutely fascinating. So I was doing a quick mental summation when you were mentioning those country-specific investments. So about $20-30 billion worth of investments in the coming years, just in this ASEAN area. And toward the end of your response, you mentioned something about innovation and helping startups. So let's talk a little bit about that in the context of Singapore. You have an innovation hub here.
Yes. Yeah, no, thanks for mentioning that. So just a couple of months back, we launched our innovation hub here, which again, we think is, just a really, unique experience to take customers and partners and students through to really just showcase some of this technology that I think we're all reading about often, in the press on a daily basis. But so we built this environment. It's really immersive. It's over 8,000 square feet. There's over 50 different demonstrations across industries, ranging from AI smart farming to smart manufacturing to blockchain to areas like Kuiper, which is an area where Kuiper is our low Earth orbit satellite solution that we've launched, and will be providing actually full coverage around to Southeast Asia by the end of 2026. So anyway, we showcase all of these technologies in a way that really helps customers unlock maybe some of the aspiration they have around innovation, helps them accelerate how they can really start to begin to make that happen and take action. So we're actually using AI technologies to help customers maybe translate some of that vision immediately into an action plan, so they can come through the experience and leave with a very sort of actionable set of activities to go and execute. And so we plan to take over 1,000 customers through the experience across the next year. We're already, it's already kind of running hot every day with customers running through there, and a couple of hundred students as well. And I think for me, it really sort of demonstrates, one of the things I really love about Amazon and AWS is our culture of innovation. And in short, I suppose that really gets us to really sort of anchor around thinking every day is day one, and thinking like a startup. And so as customers go through that innovation center, one of the sayings I like is we like to think big, start small, scale fast. And really the innovation hub really kind of captures that as a way to help customers think big, see that ambition, but also be able to start small and innovate, and then think about how to scale as well. So we're very excited. You're super welcome to come visit soon and just see some of the technologies we're
by all means
demonstrating there.
So Jeff, you also mentioned students. Can you tell me a little bit about how students fit into this whole thing?
Yeah, so we just plan to ensure that some of the students across universities as well will target and take through the experience as well, just to inspire the student populations. There's a lot that we also do just more broadly around empowerment of skills and students through AWS digital skills and learning that perhaps I can talk about in a bit. But
So I'm actually a big beneficiary of one of the capabilities of AWS. So we used to have this sort of, what is it called? The speed racer or the cyber racer?
Deep racer.
Deep racer, exactly. And the whole idea of you can sort of come up with your own little algorithm or solutions to make the car go as fast or as efficiently as possible, with all these, like a dozen, if not hundreds of parameters that you can play with. at employee level, that hundreds of DBS staff could model train these things and try it out and go for this virtual racer.
I love that you played with that.
Yes, it didn't do very well, but there were others in the technology and operations side who I think were more dedicated than I was. It wasn't trivial.
Yes.
It was data intensive. It was demanding, which I really loved. It wasn't some sort of a trivial pursuit. It was pretty substantial.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I mean, we keep trying to find ways to sort of gamify some of this learning, and a couple of other examples. Actually, something that we've built is called the League of Large Language Models, which is a way of in the same way that we gamified Deep Racer to tune, a racing sort of car analogy, but in this case, like how to tune a large language model. And so we've been running these large scale sessions where people are in a competition to create the most effective fine tuning of a large language model. And and actually, just while we're on the kind of topic, but just this weekend in Malaysia, we launched what is officially Malaysia's largest ever national hackathon. So with Minister Gobind supporting, as well as a wide number of universities. But so over the coming weeks, we have a number of students and organisations all participating. So there's almost 2,000 individuals participating in this large scale hackathon across Malaysia that we kicked off at the weekend. So we love really just trying to find ways to really make it fun to learn about these new technologies and bring it to life in different ways, and in the context of an organisation or at a more nationwide level.
Right. Speaking of AI, what is Amazon Nova?
Yeah, so Nova is a first-party model that we've built. So our approach around generative AI and AI is to provide a choice of models. We believe one model won't rule them all, and so we want customers to have the widest range of choice. We think many tasks will be performed by touching a number of different models. But Nova is a family of models that we launched at reInvent last December, and this really enables customers to have the best of access to first-party models through Amazon and AWS as well. And there are some great examples already that we're seeing in Asean of customers using this. So First Light Productions in the Philippines, who are an education production studio producing a lot of their school and educational content now, using some of the media capabilities of Nova. But there are thousands of customers that are adopting this. But I would also just position it in the context of our view is that customers want choice. Customers want to be, and we've seen, I think, just the proliferation of models that's happened over the last couple of years. So that's very much at the core of our strategy. But I can tell you a bit more about how we're seeing AI and just the direction, if that's helpful.
By all means. So, like GPT-5 and Claude and Gemini, Nova is your sort of all-purpose LLM, which is available in the public domain. I can go to the website or download the app and use it just the way I use any other LLMs. Yeah,
you can use it. Well, I mean, we really encourage customers to use models through Amazon Bedrock. There's reasons for doing that. And so Bedrock is our platform that enables customers to very quickly build generative AI applications, but it also comes with a number of other services such as guardrails, security features, automated reasoning to remove hallucinations and so on. So we think that actually there's a lot of value when you're using these models that we can help just customers with a lot of that kind of infrastructure and those key kind of enterprise grade capabilities as well. But yeah, there's other ways that we're just helping customers get really easy access to these kind of capabilities as well is we launched a product called Kiro actually at New York Summit in July, which is really aimed at the vibe coding type capabilities as a term that's becoming, I think, familiar to many people now. But just this very low bar to entry ability to create a loose specification of a task, and then for the tool to create a plan and then start to build applications. So we're kind of approaching how we think about AI just from sort of multiple layers, from at the silicon layer as well. So we've for some time now had custom silicon processors to enable model training and model inference. So we have Trainium and Inferentia. And really these drive down the cost of inference and the cost of training models. So Trainium 2, which is our latest processor, is about 3 times more energy efficient and performant. And so this really helps customers train models more efficiently. On top of that, then we have our tooling for data scientists, so SageMaker and SageMaker Unified Studio, so to enable data scientists to quickly build train models. Bedrock, as I mentioned then, is really just this aggregation layer that helps customers quickly build applications, use any model that they want to use, have the benefits of guardrails, automated reasoning, security. And then on top of that, the applications that we have, so Q for Business, which enables business users to just really access insights from across their organization. We have Q for Developer, which lets developers build applications quickly, and then tools like Kiro to also build new applications. So really, the thought and philosophy that we have is that look, if most customers are like us and like DBS, where you're constantly thinking, how can I improve the customer experience? What can I do to improve that going forward? Then, if you're thinking like that, then you're probably going to be thinking, how can I use AI and generative AI to do that? And if you're doing that, you're probably going to be using a lot of inference and have a lot of different models that you want to use. So it's in that sort of concept that we think actually providing Bedrock, providing a range of models, making it easy for customers to access and switch between these different models. And that's the interesting thing I see, customers that maybe might start on one model and change to another or combine it. And we see some just amazing impacts, I would say, across a range of customers. So if I take in the telco space in Indonesia, Telkomsel with over 130 million customers and subscribers. They wanted to kind of reimagine some of their customer service capabilities and really transform the kind of IT operations side into a service that was really proactive and able to dynamically resolve issues. And so building with us, they created a solution that was able to manage incident analysis 21% faster and actually incident resolution 83% faster. So when you think about that in the context of changing customer satisfaction and customer journeys, it's really powerful. Or indeed, perhaps down in Australia, Commonwealth Bank Australia, who we have a strategic partnership with, but we migrated about 61,000 of their data pipelines onto AWS, and then have over 2,000 AI models running. And the data point that I love is there are 55 million AI-driven decisions made every day now by their platforms. So when you kind of think about just that in the kind of context of using AI, I think I'm seeing kind of organizations maybe move from maybe like being obviously moving to cloud and cloud first to thinking about AI first, but also thinking about being AI native. And I would say the sort of difference between AI first, thinking I want to adopt and use lots of AI across my services, as opposed to AI native, and the Commonwealth Bank example is let's reimagine our processes from scratch and really think about how would we build it if we didn't have any of those existing tools and we kind of started with AI. So there's this, I think it's a really kind of interesting, kind of era, this kind of probably decade of AI that we're a few years into now and seeing some of these transformations. But we're incredibly excited about it. We think this is probably, as big as some of the transformation eras of internet, of cloud computing, maybe of invention of the microprocessor even, and so on, in terms of that impact.
Right. I particularly resonate with your point, Jeff, that the one model would not be ruling all, that we would have to have platforms which allow us to sort of do horse races around that. Now, you were, of course, giving me very high-end corporate examples. I'll give you a very mundane, personal level example. So my 12-year-old, he was asked to come up with an answer for what sustainability means to you. And we asked Claude and Gemini and DeepSeek and a bunch of other models the same question. It was very interesting, the kind of different answers we got. And then the winning answer that he resonated with most was an analogy where you think of the Earth as a spaceship moving through time. And you need to have enough food and water for the next generation of astronauts. And I thought that storytelling approach, and because it was DeepSeek, which had the reasoning in there, it was pretty compelling to a 12-year-old.
Yes, yeah.
I'm sure an automated solution would be better, and that's where AWS's platforms come in. I want to ask you one question about the sort of the distinguishing characteristics between AI strategy and a Gen AI strategy. Whether it is DBS or AWS, Gen AI is a 3, 4, 5-year journey, but AI has been around for a long time, and machine learning and so on, and including the deep racer. These are decades-old pursuits. So when you talk about cloud native versus cloud first, I think you've won that battle. That's done in the industry. But when we talk about AI first versus Gen AI first, are we still talking about two different things?
Yeah, no, I think it's a really interesting point, and you're right. I mean, in terms of Amazon's own journey with AI, ML, and I mean, this began right back at the dawn of Amazon, really, exactly. When we were, providing personalized recommendations for books and so on the the very early websites and so on. So it's something that we've got a couple of decades of experience, and even if I think of my own journey, kind of 8 years ago on joining AWS, and we were launching actually products back then to make AI very accessible to customers. So we took things where we'd built a lot of machine learning models around forecasting, for example. Turned out we had a lot of experience of that in the retail business, so we wrapped that up in some ML models, provided that as an AI service that people could very quickly just build and call from an application. So we launched a set of services back then that were really, as you say, more kind of around some of these AI ML type capabilities, but really, again, with the same mental model in mind, actually, let's just make this very accessible to customers. And so we had, visual recognition capabilities, speech type capabilities for transcription, translation, all those sorts of areas that we provided. But yeah, I think as we've, kind of moved into the era of generative AI, I think probably some of the things that become even more important is again just the focus on data and ensuring that data governance and is strong. And I think it's been interesting actually. I think while we've seen relatively fast adoption in regulated industries like financial services, there's been a lot of work over many years done in terms of having really great data governance and data systems in place. But I think as organizations are looking at how they move from maybe the period of probably experimenting with Gen AI use cases, which was probably the first wave that we saw a couple of years ago. Obviously, the things that we're all familiar with, like simple summarization and so on. I think what we're seeing now is people start to really begin to think, how can I kind of industrialize that more and build up almost like a factory model. And I think and start to begin to think about how to use agents as well. And just a couple of examples. In fact, just last week here in Singapore, I was at the Keppel Next event, which was again super interesting. But they were showcasing the K AI platform, Keppel AI. That's a platform we've worked with Keppel to build out. But they just showed some really great demonstrations, I think, of Gen AI and agentic AI in action, where they took processes like maybe they're trying to understand whether there's an opportunity in the market to acquire a new asset, some land, maybe to build a data center, build some infrastructure. Next step of the process, building proposals. Next step of the process, thinking about how you actually execute that. And they've built a platform that you imagine that first step that's just doing all the analysis, just crunching together all the reports, finding out maybe the best site locations, land, looking at a variety of signals that historically would have taken weeks and months, and they're just able to do that far more quickly and then sort of package that up. So I think, very much starting to see organizations think about more, these kind of end to end. So rather than a task, thinking about actually what's the core function of the business and how can I translate that into generative AI and agentic AI. And then, just one more example, actually, just from last week. I know we were just chatting that I was in Hanoi in Vietnam for our Cloud Summit and Cloud Day there, and Techcombank were sharing a story. So, one of Vietnam's largest joint stock held banks in Vietnam were sharing how whilst they've gone through a cloud journey and migrated 80% of their applications in cloud and are using a lot of personalization already, they have over 12,000 features to describe a customer, which again back to this sort of point of data and really getting hyper personalized, but 12,000 features for a customer. But what was very interesting was how they were thinking about agentic AI as a kind of extensibility point for their organization. So if you think they're a bank that's gone through going from maybe 5-7 million customers to 16.5 million customers today, and they're continuing to grow, and the affluence of their customers continues to grow, they realize that they can't just maybe keep continuing to grow their headcount. They need to think about how they scale with AI. And so, they're thinking about like the role of a relationship manager in the future as they sort of move further up the wealth food chain, if I can call it that, how they're going to be using those tools to help them scale. And then another example that I thought was very interesting they gave was thinking about an area of their market, like credits and loans into SMEs, and how historically they'd sort of struggled to get a really good sort of telemetry around whether it was viable to loan to some of these organizations. But they built a system using generative AI where they just take 3 pictures of the actual physical location, and then are able to determine from that the credit risk. And this has unlocked 700,000 new SMEs that they can potentially loan to, and so on, and create business around. So I think we've gone from maybe someone doing some perhaps fraud detection and assembling information and summarization into much sort of broader end-to-end use cases. People beginning to organizations thinking about how I can scale that and start to industrialize that some more, and then also thinking about agentic AI as this scalability point for the organization as well. So I think very different from probably if I can call it the classical AI period and so on. I think we were used to seeing customers benefit from improving their inventory forecasting using ML models and so on, to actually beginning to think about how we can drive even more significant business impact through scaling or unlocking new areas of the market, etc.
So this is potentially sort of historic, to your point, that as we have seen previous waves of disruptive technology, and they have been consequential, no question about it. But all of these technology rollouts come with their challenges. So let's talk a little bit about that. Security, something that we all worry about, especially in a regulated space like finance, but I think any corporate client that you have would want a secure Gen AI or AI system. So what are your thoughts on challenges around that and the possible solutions that are being worked through in the industry?
Yeah, sure, for sure. As I touched on earlier, absolutely job zero for us at Amazon AWS is security. Everything is designed. The first thing that is considered is security, and so that's the first point I would say, and that sort of plays through into how we think about AI and GenAI, and really we're balancing we want to of course democratize access and provide the broadest capabilities to our customers, but in a way that meets the highest safety standards and the highest security standards. So let me just explain a little bit about how we try and think about that and how we try and achieve that. So firstly, I would say it's awesome that some of the emerging standards around responsible AI, like ISO 42001. So we are one of the first cloud providers to fully support that standard. And what that means is organizations that are concerned about trustworthy and responsible AI know that all of the services and how we run our AI services meet that international standard. So that's sort of a standards level. I'd say secondly then from a platform perspective as well. So I explained a little bit about Bedrock earlier, and so some of the features that we built into Bedrock. So our guardrails feature is a way of just removing harmful content and allowing customers to remove harmful content. We created a feature called automated reasoning, and actually this has been derived from. Turns out we had a bunch of scientists in our organization that had gotten very good at doing kind of mathematical proofs of proving data if it's sent from one side of a network to another, and solving some of those areas. So we were able to take some of that expertise and think about, well, if we're trying to solve the problem of hallucination in models and wrong data coming back, can we use some of those theories? And so that's what we did. We took that science and built it into automated reasoning to stop hallucination in models as well. In our Nova family of models, then we've built some of these capabilities automatically in there to automatically remove harmful content and so on for our customers. So we're also investing a lot in the technology and the stack to help. From a security perspective as well, again, very much if customers are running their models and putting data into their models on AWS, that data is never going to be going externally. It's always within their own controlled and virtual environment that's secured. And from a security perspective, so we support over 143 different security standards and compliance certifications. So again, the bar is very high just in terms of all of the standards that we support for the sort of core security and infrastructure. So all in all, we're trying to kind of ensure that we balance agility with providing environments that meet the highest safety standards. If I think of examples like Bolt Tech, the InsurTech customer of ours, so they operate in over 30 different countries internationally. They wanted to build some GenAI solutions around claims processing and underwriting, and so we built this with them using Bedrock. It uses, again, a number of models, so not just one model. They're able to kind of change and use different models, but they're able to meet all of the regulatory requirements in all the 30 different markets that they're operating in as well. So we're trying to help customers go fast with the standards and compliance support. We're trying to build as much into the services that we offer as well. But we ultimately we know that just ensuring that we're just always focused on providing the highest standards of safety, security, and responsible AI is our focus.
Right. So in statistics, we always talked about type 1 and type 2 error. And if you want to avoid any sort of false hypothesis being put out, you can just choose not to accept any hypothesis at all. So same with hallucination. Is it a feature or a bug of large language models? Because if it's a feature, then I suppose what we can do is best is to come up with clever solutions to minimize it, but we will never be able to eliminate it. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think we're very much trying to think of it as eliminating it or providing customers choice to be able to decide and still have human in the loop on a lot of these aspects as well. And so I think we're trying to again provide combinations of both guardrails, both tools that can automatically begin to filter out noise, but again just make it very transparent for customers to always be very clear on and auditable on what's happened.
No, earlier, I think at the very beginning of this conversation, you talked about 3 servers per service as sort of helpful. Yeah. So that brings me to the question of reliability. Mm-hmm. You want these things to be always on. Mm-hmm. You don't want any sort of stoppages. Is it becoming more challenging given the computational needs and the high intensity operations required around LLMs, or is it something that the industry, including yours, is trying to be on top of?
Yeah, sure. I would say it's something that, again, rather like security, I think we've always really focused on resilience and reliability just as a kind of a fundamental, immutable tenet that we have in terms of how we think about data center design. And so the kind of unique way that we build our regions, so we call a region like Singapore or like Thailand a region, and we call it a region because it's got this pattern of 3 different, or configuration of 3 different data centers essentially that are physically isolated and separated. And so if there are issues with natural disasters in one area and so on, there's protection and resilience there. And what we found, just over I suppose also, we've built a lot of experience in terms of running these, cloud data centers at scale now over the last nearly sort of 2 decades and so on, that AWS has been in operation. And we like to say there's no compression algorithm for experience that we've learned in terms of running the largest internet scale websites for Netflix or Zoom or customers like that. There's a lot of things that you need to get right in terms of the infrastructure and reliability and so on, and so many mission critical customers, and so so I mean it's interesting actually, just some of the APJ research that's been published. So I think just last year a report by Frost and Sullivan that just looked at the number of incident hours of cloud providers and we are by far the lowest, probably about 2.5 times fewer incident hours than the next nearest cloud provider. And so we don't take that for granted. We continue to work out how to continue to focus on resilience and reliability. But it's a big part of how we design data centers. It's built into the kind of pattern of how we do that.
So earlier you were talking about solutions to make the processes more efficient, which I guess another way of saying it is making more energy efficient. Now, these sort of heavy computational solutions that we are sort of embracing with LLMs are energy hungry. I'm seeing stories of tariff rates in electricity going up sharply in certain southwestern part of the US because all of a sudden these data centers are very hungry and they're demanding a lot of electricity. Now, the typical answer to that is, well, we can always build solar farms to provide electricity to run the data center, so therefore the solution is green. So I want you to sort of address the sustainability question that in the last 5 years with this LLM GenAI revolution, we have decided to go on to this big next level of energy consumption. How are we sort of managing our sustainability aspirations against that?
Yeah, sure. No, there's a lot to cover and a lot we're sort of focused on in this space, as you say. It's sustainability and transition to green energy and so on is something that we are again both at an Amazon and AWS level, super focused on with climate pledge to get to net zero by 2040. But also we set a goal to power all of Amazon's Amazon's operations rather with renewable energy by 2030, and actually we've achieved that goal already in terms of meeting that, which we're super proud of. But some of the ways that we're working on it are kind of multi-layers to this. So firstly, again, external research by folks like Accenture have shown that actually moving applications from a traditional on-premise data center to AWS cloud is about 4.1 times more energy efficient. So just by moving to cloud, to AWS cloud, you can reduce energy consumption. And actually moving an application across can reduce its carbon footprint by about 99% as well. So just actually in terms of organizations looking to meet some of their green and sustainability goals, there's benefits just in moving to cloud. We've been investing a lot in terms of how we think about and evolve our data center designs. So our latest data center designs provide about 12% more compute power, which means we need less data centers. So that's sort of helpful in terms of that. We focus a lot on thinking about heat energy as well. So particularly in the subtropical climate here in Southeast Asia. So we've been able to work on innovation to reduce mechanical heat energy by 46% as well. So that's important. And then also have liquid cooling technologies that help across our AI training workloads and so on. So within the data centers, there's a lot of focus to help optimize and make them more efficient. At the silicon layer then as well, so we have built custom chips essentially that provide far better power utilization. So we have a family of processors called Graviton. They're in actually fourth generation now, but these use about 60% less energy than traditional x86 kind of instance types that might be used. So again, very, very energy efficient. And I briefly mentioned earlier Trainium, which is again our custom silicon for training large language models, and this is about 3 times more energy efficient than previous models and previous chipsets. So we find that customers like Anthropic, Apple at reInvent show last year are using Trainium for training models as well to get some of these energy efficiencies. And then in terms of the kind of broader strategy, we're absolutely investing in renewable energy. So we have probably more than 600 projects now globally around renewable energy. Right here in Southeast Asia, we have partnerships with EDP Renewables here in Singapore and Semcorp. We've got about 4 solar projects in Indonesia with PLN. So again, we continue to invest in renewable projects and finding ways to scale renewable energy. So really we're really trying to tackle it from a point of view that we know in order to really fulfill digital inclusion, areas that can drive like financial inclusion and impacts of society, we need to provide our services broadly. And in order to do that, we need to make sure that we're doing it in a way that's really sustainable and just really provides a long-term future, a long-term sustainable future. So very much, at the strategy just to continue to lower the power requirements of training models, of the chipsets that we run, and then also find ways to create renewable energy as well.
So earlier when we were talking about the multi-billion-dollar investment plans in the region, a subset of that is into renewable energy investment as well.
We don't break out just the subset of that, but we have teams that are working on renewable energy across Amazon as well as across AWS as well.
So you're traveling around the region a lot. You mentioned trips to Indonesia and Vietnam recently. You've been to Malaysia too. So what's your sense in the region? Are we connecting the renewables need with the big likely pickup in data centers and all these things?
Yeah, I think I see it more and more. I kind of mentioned just the example of PLN in Indonesia, where we've got 4 renewable projects running there. So in fact, just recently as well, we announced that it's a public announcement with Petronas around their Gentari renewable energy business unit. How again we were procuring green energy from Gentari as well. There's I'm definitely seeing the flywheel within ASEAN and so on really help fuel and feed the renewable energy into data centers.
Right. And I'm personally sort of riveted by this dynamic, because when I see, particularly in southern part of Malaysia, lots of data centers coming up, and I think the one refrain I hear from Malaysia is that the AWSs of the world would not invest in them unless they have a renewable sort of backbone to that, and so no, keep leading by example.
Thank you.
You mentioned the word financial inclusion earlier, and I think once I spoke with you before, you had also used synonymously democratization of AI. So what does it mean to you, both the inclusion and the democratization aspect?
Yeah, no, thanks. I touched on it just a little bit there, I guess, with thinking about how we, provide, the broadest access to our services, and, probably firstly kind of going back to the regional investments that we're making. Clearly that, that provides the foundations and the services that our customers and that nations can help access and build with. And so, on top of that, of course, we really want to provide knowledge and skills. So we have over 500 different courses now available through something called Skills Builder. These are free online digital courses. These are available in multiple languages: Bahasa, Indonesian, Vietnamese, Thai, etc. So again, we're really trying to up level skills. I touched on a couple of kind of startup examples earlier, but we're really focused on helping startups build and grow in the region. We have a program specifically dedicated to invest in startups called Activate. Activate provides skills, learning, investments to help startups bootstrap their early journey to the cloud. So we're really just trying to find ways to really sort of fuel skills, provide broad access. And then I touched briefly earlier just on, I mentioned Kuiper, our low Earth orbit satellite network, and again really this is part of the story as well, as we think particularly about Southeast Asia and some of the broad archipelago geography, and providing digital connectivity as well across that, and Kuiper is going to do that, and provide a way to help people access digital services wherever they are, and so I think that's going to also, really just provide, a different level of opportunity for individuals to participate in the digital economy, to really be able to access intelligence as well through generative AI and agentic AI and models that probably just would have been prohibitive before. So Kuiper's kind of part of the story from a connectivity perspective. And then when we think about also thinking about generative AI within that context as well, we're, as I was describing with Bedrock, we really want to make sure that then when customers are accessing those services, they've got a broad set of models to access and use. We've just actually, I think you mentioned DeepSeek earlier, but we've just very recently added DeepSeek's 67 billion parameter chat model into Bedrock as well. We've just added OpenAI's open weight models into Bedrock as well. So again, providing the broadest and deepest set of capabilities for customers will also help with that democratization. So yeah, we really want to ensure that customers can get easily connected digitally, can have access to training and skills, can have access to funding programs if they're startups, and then once they're using the technology, really have the best of open source and first party technologies. And so there's a lot happening in the open source space around agentic AI, and we support all of the key frameworks like Strands, which is a framework for building agentic AI, and Model Context Protocol. All of these types of open source frameworks, AWS has historically always embraced open source, and that kind of continues in this Gen AI, agentic AI era as well. So that's kind of how we're thinking about democratization and access.
When you were earlier talking about Keppel showcasing their KAI, I was thinking that if indeed they manage to cut weeks, if not months, from preparatory work when they're looking at projects to invest in, wouldn't that also mean cutting a bunch of young trainees who normally do that grunt work and their jobs would disappear?
I think, it's a really key question, and I think an important topic to discuss. And I think, firstly, I would say I do think, and you're probably seeing it as well, here in DBS, some of the nature of work is training and is changing. And without actually being flippant, but there was one anecdote that I just wanted to share. I saw Kansu Pichai, the chair of CP Group, just recently in a podcast type video recording talking about generative AI, and he was asked a similar question, and he said, I think the first person who'll lose their job will be me. It'll be the CEO. And he said, because we're democratizing access to intelligence. Everyone's got the same information that CEOs previously had. Everyone's able to pull together agents to do things more effectively. And so I think, there's a grain of reality in what he's saying as well, just around, I think, as we're thinking about, democratizing technologies, but within an organization, having a broader set of access to information, enabling people to maybe use their creativity and their critical thinking in ways that they might have not been able to before. So I think there's definitely an era where we'll see sort of roles evolve and change. And I think historically, as we've seen with any technology era, what we've seen as the outcome has been a far greater sort of set of opportunities for individuals. And Tamara, if I think about my own career, and I think about probably my parents, who were whatever came before Gen X, but they were Gen W, if that exists, but they could have never imagined probably my career and the jobs that exist around the tech industry and so on. So I feel that we're probably at the beginning of an era like that. If I maybe just reflect on within Amazon what we're kind of seeing, and we see probably over 1,000 different use cases of Gen AI, and some of these things emerging, be it how Alexa is responding to customers and answering questions, or be it how Amazon fulfillment centers are using some of these technologies to manage inventory, or how on our Amazon.com retail platforms we're helping third-party sellers build advertising and content more quickly using tool sets, or in more customer-facing teams in AWS, whether it's helping forecasting the business and summarizing information, documentation. So there's I think, and I'm sure as within your business and other customers you meet, we're sort of seeing all of these kind of areas of productivity begin to emerge. But I think as we kind of move forward, I think some of the facts remain around. I think of also analogies like when the calculator was invented, you still need to understand how to do maths to make use of the calculator. And I think some of these things really apply to generative AI and agentic AI, that ability to think critically, to understand how to make use of these technologies. But I kind of remain sort of excited about I think the opportunity for reach and growth that it provides organizations, where most people are, and I love the example from your son. I'll use an example of actually related to my son, but we were talking about some sporting things earlier, and I was actually just looking at arranging his flights to come out to Singapore, and I thought I'd use a agentic AI tool just to go off and do all the website comparisons, and I was watching the agentic tool just go off, fill in all the forms, do all the searching. I was meanwhile doing some work. 30 minutes later, it had completed its analysis. I'd been quite productive doing some work, and then it was like, okay, it's that flight on that date, it's the best option. So I think there's some of this kind of undifferentiated administrative type work that I think will change through, and we're seeing it, right? I think often we see these things first in the consumer environment as well, start to ripple through into and across enterprises. But I think ultimately, we want to be able to, empower teams to be agile, quickly hustle around a problem, build solutions, have the skills to do that. So I think some of a bit back to Superchar's example, right? I think we'll see organisation structures start to reflect that a bit more as teams can, maybe make use of agents to execute some tasks and take them into a new market. And I think the Techcombank example that I mentioned just from Hanoi last week, I think was just very interesting how. They're thinking of how, there's an envelope around the resource of their organization, but an ambition around their growth, and how do they get to that ambition by looking at scaling mechanisms. So yeah, I think, as I say, I think it's the dawn, the beginning of of an era that we're in, which is going to be super exciting to see play out.
So beginning of the beginning, indeed. So now I normally don't leave the hardest question for the last, but I will give you that challenge. So MIT NANDA project a couple of weeks ago released this report where they interviewed lots of enterprises in the US, and some basic takeaways are what we're discussing, that there's a lot of enthusiasm when you do corporate one-on-one interviews on efficiency enhancement. You get a lot of evidence of workflows being improved and so on. But when this report tried to establish direct attribution to P&L, most companies said, not yet. We're going through the process. It's not infused enough in the organization to be able to actually say the dollars and cents evidence. Do you find that too conservative an approach? And are you, in your experience, through your travel and through your client engagement, seeing something more encouraging than that?
Yeah. I would say yes. I would say I am seeing two parts to how I'd answer that. I'd say, firstly, I am seeing some more positive examples of that for sure. I think probably just the example I referenced with Telkomsel and their customer service and being able to completely compress the time to service and resolve issues and so on, that's resulting in improved customer satisfaction, or how Commonwealth Bank Australia are making 55 million AI driven decisions on a daily basis. So some of these things are operating and executing at scale that is having impact in a business for sure already. I think or even if I look at perhaps the area around software development, it's super interesting just what's been happening in the ability to produce source code more quickly. And I think just some work that we did within Amazon where we were looking to upgrade some legacy Java-based code environments, and so we were able to use our agentic AI tools to save 450 developer years of upgrade time in doing that. And that was undifferentiated work, moving it from Java version X to Java version Y and testing it and doing all of those sort of things. So I think what's kind of interesting, I think, in this space as well is a lot of organizations are actually weighed down by technology, in the sense of there's probably 2 or 3 decades of technology debt, systems that have been built and are hard to change, expensive to change, and so on, and on premise. But actually, what generative AI and agentic AI is enabling organizations to do is to begin to point agents to look at, well, can I migrate that and build new software and change that, mainframes, these sorts of legacy systems. So again, we're seeing, actually we've launched a product called Transform that's exactly aimed at that. So taking sort of legacy environments that maybe, the people that wrote the code left the organization 20 years ago, but the agents can go in and analyze it and kind of understand a plan and then build, a new version of that in an open source stack and modernize it. So So I think just that. That weight, if you like, of technology burden as well, we're seeing organizations begin to lift. And then probably the third point I'd say is there's just this point of scalability that I think we're just beginning to see, and just beginning to see organizations start to think, how they are building these things with us. How can I create hundreds of use cases that are going to have a kind of a scaled impact across the business, and then on top of that, how can I begin to think about maybe agents as an extensibility point? But I was with a banking customer in Thailand a couple of weeks ago. He said they write 100 million lines of code each year. They're writing 10 million now using generative AI. But their development team are now just creating all sorts of new products. And he was talking about a new product for helping customers choose credit cards and so on based on an agentic approach and so on. So I think, again, that ability of maybe some legacy type technology work that can be modernized and have the technology teams focused on some really kind of business impacting capability areas, and then seeing scale. So I read that report with great interest as well, and there's definitely elements of it, of course, that I think we've seen a lot of productivity enhancements within an organization, or people building maybe point solutions for generative AI to solve a task to help I don't know, maybe improve fraud detection in an area, rather than these kind of broader end-to-end, more what I would describe as AI native use cases that are kind of reimagining how to build. And so that's I think some of what we're seeing more and more of. And
so sooner than later.
No, I think now in terms of just some of the customers and the impacts that we're seeing for this. I think what's happened probably from the era of generative AI last year and the year before to agentic AI now is just completely, again, put a different sort of curve in terms of what's possible with this technology. So. I couldn't be more excited to spend some time talking to you about it.
It's infectious. You have certainly added to my enthusiasm. Jeff, thank you so much for your time and insights. Great conversation.
Thanks, Tamir. Thanks so much for having me. It's been great to be here.
Great to have you, and thanks to our listeners as well. Kopi Time was produced by Ken Delbridge. Violet Lee and Daisy Sharma provided additional assistance. All 161 episodes of this podcast are available on YouTube as well as on Apple, Google, and Spotify. This is for information only, does not constitute any investment advice. And as far as DBS Research and live streams are concerned, you can find them all by Googling DBS Research Library. Have a great day.